Welcome to the New Discovery Christian Podcast, where you'll find Bible messaging and sermons that will encourage, uplift, and challenge you to a godlier life. Join our community and become inspired to continue living a God-directed life.
Welcome again to the New Discovery Podcast. Here I am as your host, Kyle, and I got Javan as my co-host, and we also today have a new co-host, Kinley.
Hi.
Yeah, so Kinley's going to bring in a female perspective, better than me, Javan, or Zach ever could, honestly, even if we even want to try. So it's just, it's one of those things. So we kind of bring up, why are we bringing Kinley on? So one of the things is, Zach is, we've mentioned, Zach is he's later 20s, I'm mid-20s, and then Javan is barely 20, 20, and then Kinley is 17. So she's bringing in a later teenager getting into adulthood perspective and a female perspective. So we got a 2-in-1 right there. So that's going to be an awesome, very addition, I think, to the podcast. I'm really excited for it. And Kinley also is a leader in a Christian group at the high school in the area. So she also is bringing that perspective. She's a leader in what she's doing right now. And I think that's awesome. And it's going to be a great addition having her on. So
Thank you.
You're welcome. And so today we're going to have a topic on something else when it comes to young adulthood, teenager area, especially teenager. And I think me and Javan are probably going to reflect more on this. And Kinley's probably getting out of this more than likely. So different perspectives on identity confusion. So Javan, what do you think back from when you were a teenager, when you were kind of in the midst of it, middle school, high school, friends being involved in that, peer pressure when it comes to who you are versus maybe the way you act, how you change from year to year, because you change so much from year to year in middle school and high school. It's just it's insane the amount of change that happens in the midst of your identity being fused together. So, I mean, what is one of the first things you kind of think of with this topic?
I guess for me, I saw a difference in myself when I went to college as opposed to high school, because you're with all your buddies in high school that you've grown up with, and then college you're kind of all alone, and you kind of have to reevaluate what you stand for, who you are. And I feel like in high school you can kind of mask it with the group you're with, if that makes sense. And that's been the biggest. It still is kind of a struggle for me. I'm trying to find who I am and where I stand on things. But as far as my identity, I've had to, I guess, reevaluate myself, if that makes sense. It's kind of, I'm still thinking about it.
Reevaluate from when you were a teenager to right now? Yeah,
because you kind of adopt a hive mindset with all your friends. You're kind of in a bubble and you all agree on with each other. I don't know. What about you, Kinley? What are your thoughts on the matter?
I definitely agree with that a lot. I think in high school, I think a hive mindset is a really good term for it. You hang out with the same people. It's the same group that you've grown up with. You go to the same places. You go to the same school, same classes. You all know each other really well. And so it's really easy to just kind of go along with that mindset that everybody else has, instead of being able to just think for yourself and what you believe in and develop your own opinions and perspectives on things, such as faith and your identity.
I think one thing that I was thinking about with this topic was how I remember when I was in middle school to high school. I think in middle school I was a lot more prone to, if someone in the group just said something, or if it was this is our default mode, I would almost automatically just go with it, because I was just oh my gosh, I need to be in the group, because if I get out of the group, what am I supposed to do? I'll just be out there by myself, fending off the wolves, alone by myself with no socialization, nothing, no group. And that would be worse, it felt to me. And I know when I started getting into high school, probably not 9th or 10th grade, especially 10th or 11th grade, or 11th and 12th, I should say, I know that there was a shift in my mindset where I started to think, okay, I know how to be social with people and have that group. And I also know I'm starting to know how to be confident in myself and know who I am to like say, well, I don't agree with that, or this is kind of who I am. And there was like a shift. I don't know exactly when that happened, but I know in those 2 years something switched. And one of my fears did come true where I was like, oh, what if someone doesn't like me or they don't agree with me and now no one likes me? Like, it wasn't as bad as I thought, but it still happened. Like there was a few people, like for instance, I remember just when it comes to standing up for your values, I mean, I think that's definitely a part of it because it's part of who you are. I remember one time, it was a good friend of mine on the football team. We went out to the track and after practice, we'd go out there and we'd practice even more. We'd do push-ups, sit-ups, run, sprint, all that good stuff. And he was a really good friend. And I remember one time, so he dipped, and that's fine. I mean, whatever. I'm not going to be like, oh, you're not going to be my friend because you dip or something like that. It's like, I mean, you can do whatever you want. But like, he asked me, hey, do you want some dip while I was doing it? I was just like, nah, man, I'm good. I was like, you can go ahead and do whatever you want. I'm fine with that. But then, he asked me, and I was like, no, I don't want it. But then he like insisted. He's like, dude, take some. I'm like, I already said no. You know what I mean? I was like, and he's like, take some, man. He's like, are you a man? I'm like, it's dip. Like, how does that make me a man? I was just like, back off, dude. Like, and it got like super awkward after because like he didn't say anything or talk. And I'm just like, why do you gotta like push it like that, man? Like, is it really worth like the friendship thing over that? And like after that, it was a little cold between me and him. And we were so cool, but like, I remember I was just like, I'm really glad I didn't take it though after that because I thought about this question sort of. I mean, within that age, I think I was going into 12th, I think, or something like that. And I was like, maybe I should have just taken it and it just wouldn't have been a big deal. I thought about it. It's like, but I was like, but I don't want to take it. I was like, I don't want to be on dip. I don't want to have any type of nicotine addiction. If someone else does, I mean, I guess that's up to you. I don't prefer it and I don't want it. And I was just like, because I think he ended up smoking cigarettes later. So I was like, I know once I graduated, I reflected more. I was like, I could have ended up doing that dip just because some dude said, take the dip. And then I could also be on cigarettes, which I definitely don't want to be. And I know my mom has struggled with cigarettes way in the past. And she always said never take cigarettes. And she says, even to this day, I think it's like 30 years later, she's been off, I still smell a cigarette. And it's like a part of me still wants to go over there and smoke the cigarette. And it's been 30 years. I'm like, 30 years? And like still? So like she said, never start because it'll be like, ugh, that smells disgusting. But if you smoke it, then it's like, it kind of draws you in. So that was one thing I specifically kind of thought about with this podcast was that kind of story because it was very stark and he was a good friend of mine. And it wasn't, I don't know. It's just like a lot was like cooking in that scenario, I guess, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like as a high schooler, I wanted to belong to a group, and if I like refused like a Juul or a vape, I would be like outed, and I wouldn't be like a part of the guy group or whatever. And I guess that's like where peer pressure wins most of the time. It's just you don't want to be like the odd man out because everybody's doing it, and you'll stand out, and like you kind of won't be in, if that makes sense.
Right.
But yeah, that's how nobody really dipped in the high school I went to, but there was a lot of like vaping and juuling going on. Is it still that way? I haven't been in high school in 2 years. Yeah, not much has changed.
Yeah, that's a yes.
So, yeah, there's just a point in your life when you got to like realize who you are and be comfortable just with yourself and not how others perceive or see you, I guess. You just got to create your own identity.
Yeah, you got to kind of like, I feel like you got to own it at a certain point.
Yeah, if you don't vape, just don't be like in the I don't know, just say no, I'm not going to vape and then proclaim it and maybe everybody, I don't know. This is a tough thing to talk about, I feel like. Cuz it's real,
yeah,
but it's like it's tough to grasp it, if that makes sense. It's like a gray area.
Yeah, because
finding your identity. Cuz like I'm still doing it.
Right. Yeah, I mean I think
It's
that's
tough
a
to
good,
navigate.
I think that's a good point in this discussion. I think that's why it's good for all three of our ages to be on here because, in a way, like you just said, I'm not even quite
Yeah, I would-
done
yeah.
either. In a way, now I may not be in the same place as I was as a teenager. There's a stark difference, but in a way, you're right. It's not quite done, and I think in a way, I'm still in the midst of it. It's just not like I'm not in the early stages anymore. So that's a good point because like me being 25, I went through more of the teenager, just standing up for certain beliefs and values and things like that. But it started to become more than that. I know when I started to become, I guess it amplified to a certain extent because I know when I got my job at Sports Authority and started going to school, I know I ran into people that would like clash with also, do I want to be a part of the group at work or at school? Well, to an extent, I do. I was like, it wasn't quite like high school. I had to say high school was like on steroids, I have to say, to a certain extent, because you're not quite an adult and you don't have some of those rights as an adult to pull some triggers on certain things. So it made it kind of hard. But because you can't get away from certain people. If you don't, like, and your job is just horrible, it's like you can always leave your job. So you can't just leave your school. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just like,
You're trapped there.
so it's kind of hard, I would admit. But like when I still went to my job, there were still like people and wanted to bring you in and do you want to be a part of that group or not? And all my bosses were the same as well. And I just remember I always had to have that thought of like sitting on that teeter line of like, who am I and what am I going to say and I'm going to do versus am I just going to do this just because other people like it kind of thing. And I mean, that still happened. I think it was definitely like in my early 20s, something like that. Kind of, where you are essentially. And that was still going on with me, I know. And I don't know. Again, it still rubs certain people wrong at times about certain things I said. I remember there was one guy. I definitely wasn't going to do this. Some people are going to think this is funny that a youth minister is saying this, but whatever. So there was a guy one time, I remember he was kind of like the guy from the track. He pulled the same stunt, and I can't believe he'd think I was going to go do this. Like, he came up and he's like, "Hey, Kyle, you like women?" I was like, "Yeah."
No, I like dudes.
I guess that would have knocked the
That would've
conversation down. But it was like, I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "So what do you do about it?" Or something. I was like, "What is that supposed to mean?" Like, I'm open to
What
dating.
you gonna do about it?
And then I was like, it was like already weird the way he brought it up and the way he was talking. So I'm like already on edge. I'm like, where's this guy going? And I definitely had a good red flag was going off from what he said. He's like, "You ever want to go to the strip club with me?" I'm like, no. And he's like, "Why?" I'm like,
Why?
I was like, "Dude, I'm just gonna be straight up. I'm a Christian." He's like, "Me too." I was like,
There's Christian strippers there. Don't worry.
I was like, I wasn't really sure what to say at that point because I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I didn't want to like call him out and say he wasn't a Christian. So like a lot of things were going on in my head. I'm like, oh, I thought that would just shut it down right there. And it didn't. But so I had to like dig deeper. And I was just like, I don't remember exactly what I said. I was just like, dude, I'm just not comfortable with that. I was like, I think it's wrong and everything. I was like, I'm not saying that you can't go. You do whatever you want, I guess. But I'm not going to go. And so like, I thought it was like at that, and I was still kind of uncomfortable because I didn't have like a clear answer that I kind of wanted, but I still was like, I'm not going, dude. The dude asked me 2 weeks later, and he's like, I'm like stalking some stuff. A dude walks up behind me. I'm like, oh, geez, please tell me he's not going to bring it up again. He's like, "Yeah, man, so I'm going to the Pink Pony again. I was just wondering if you wanted to go." I was like,
Throw down some wine.
I was like, didn't I tell you the first time no? And then, oh my gosh, I think her name was Sharonda.
From the pony? So you went?
No. I was still at my job. That one of my assistant managers. Oh my gosh. One of my assistant managers was standing next to me as I was stalking the stop. And she's like, "Why you asking Kyle that question?" And he's like, well, I just want to know if you want to go and hang. She's
LaShonda
like,
with the rest
he's
of you.
he's a Christian boy. He's not gonna go anywhere. And she's like, stop Miranding him or whatever. Stop going around. He's not gonna go that dirty, nasty, disgusting place with you. I was like, I didn't quite say. I was like, thank you. And then like he was like, oh, and he's like walked off, and I was like, thank you, Sharonda. I was like, you kind of said what I kind of probably needed to say right there, but I was like, I guess it was said though. And I don't know. That was another circumstance where I could have just been like, well, I just want to be a part of the boys or whatever, and just like gone along with it. I've been very low on my identity kind of confirmed, and just like, I just need to hang out with, some of my coworkers and get to know them. Like I could have made excuses in my head for it, That's definitely an extreme version. I don't think everyone's.
I've actually been asked at work as well. Like at Kroger, some dude was
gosh.
like, but I was 17, so that's what that was my excuse. He said, "Hey man, it's my 19th birthday this Friday. You want to come?" And I said, "Where?" I didn't want to go. And before he even said anything, I didn't want to go. And he was like, "We're gonna hit up the Pony and get lit." And I said, "Nah, man, that place is dirty. Plus, I'm 17." And he was like, "Oh, come on, dude.
It's illegal."
I know.
I can't. I'm 17 and
Yeah.
it's dirty.
I can't.
Oh my gosh.
But there was something I was gonna say. Oh, what was it?
That's nuts, man. I'm glad.
You're
maybe
not
I
the-
shouldn't
you're not
say
the
I'm
only
glad
one.
that happened to you,
I
but
feel
in a
like
way, I'm like,
It's the guys that get no girls that always invite you to
Yeah.
the Pony. It's like it's not even the guys that are like cool. It's like the weird guys.
this
that
dude
want you
was
to go.
weird, dude. That's the thing. Like he had always issues talking with girls and stuff, and I guess like that was his outlet. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's not my outlet, bud. You can go do whatever you want, but I'm not going down there to that dirty place. So
That house of sin.
Yeah, I've never been asked to go to a strip club.
that's probably for the best. I don't know. Is there a guy version of that, like a Magic Mike style or something? Like
Magic.
maybe
Mike.
I don't.
I've never
wanna
been
know.
asked to go to the.
I mean, there are guy strippers, I think, but I think they do door to door, kind of like Mormon type thing. Like
Oh, wait, they're Mormons? Wait, the Mormons do this?
no, like they like
Little
you know how
editing.
Mormons go door. Never mind, just forget it.
I think I know what you're talking about. I just
like
brought that up.
DoorDash delivery.
This is where we were. This is.
we should probably back to identity, guys.
Yeah,
back to identity.
Back to identity. But yeah, what about you, Kinley? Do you have any scenarios? Probably want to leave out names, especially. I guess I left out names. But like, do you have any examples that are similar to that, and maybe in different ways? I mean, I'm sure they're not close to what I just mentioned.
Yeah,
Or
like I said,
hopefully.
never been through that one specifically.
Yet.
I can't really,
Jeez.
All right, I'm stopping.
I can't remember any like specific examples of where I'm sure there are, and I'm sure there has been. They don't come to light at the moment. But I think just kind of what was standing out to me is that that's kind of how it starts, is like a coworker coming up to you or like a friend that you work with or someone that you go to school with just saying like, hey, just go do this with me. Like, just go out tonight or, at practice or at work. And it's like, oh, well, it wouldn't be a big deal. Like it's so simple that you can convince yourself in your mind that it'd be okay. And that's why peer pressure is such a big thing, is because you don't even realize it's happening, right? Like,
Yeah.
And then some friends who drink a lot, like the type of friends who just like on the weekend, their type of fun is just getting wasted,
Yeah.
like throughout the weekend and then just coming back to school.
I can
Well,
think
it's
of
like-
so many more fun things to do.
Oh,
Yeah,
Can.
yeah,
Absolutely.
but like for some guys, I swear that's the only thing that they think is fun. And if you say no to that, you basically you can't hang out with any of your friends if that's your friend group. So it's hard because you don't want to be left out and be like, I guess, alone. So there's that to deal with.
It's kind of a balance.
Yeah.
What's kind of interesting is I was listening to a podcast. It just spawned to mind as you were saying that about all this, is how it talks about like why specifically at like some of these parties there's like a lot of alcohol and stuff like that. And obviously the surface layer is okay to get wasted and have fun or something. But like he went a little bit deeper than that, and and he did a lot of research on like alcohol too. So like he's not like some dude in his basement's bumming around like I know about alcohol. So like he kind of knew what he was talking about. And he talked about how when people do that, they let their guard down and they kind of become who they really are.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why they're doing that, is because they're not. And he says on the flip side, whoever's doing that isn't mature. I mean, the person could even be 30 years old. I met some people that they haven't gone on with their life and they're 30, 40 hanging out. And I was there. Now, there wasn't like a lot of alcohol. Well, I guess there was alcohol there, but it was like at a restaurant and everyone else was drinking in context. I wasn't like in some kind of club and everyone was drinking.
In someone's basement.
Yeah, in someone's basement or something
Saturdays
like that.
for the boys.
Yeah, it wasn't the pink pony, none of that mess.
Going back to it.
and there was like an older dude there. I'm not like getting down that he's an older dude, but I'm just saying someone older can also do this. I mean, the dude was like 50 years old, not married, living and roommating with people like my age. And I'm like,
Yeah.
where's your life going? You know what I mean? But I know, especially in places like the colleges, he ended up mentioning people do that because they won't stand up for kind of who they really are in person. And so the alcohol helps them like get rid of that layer, that social tension. We can even say peer pressure if we want to go there, to like be that person that you actually are and then interact with people. Now, obviously, there's consequences also that come from alcohol on top of that. And a lot of different bad stuff can end up going on. So it's not like preferred method in scripture, definitely talks about how we need to be sober in mind and, alcoholism is sin. So, but it's like there's something there not to do it, but it seems like a lot of people are having issues being who they really are without the alcohol. It seems like that's the actual issue. And the conduit is the alcohol. And that made me really think that people are taking the cheap route out to go to these parties or smoke and drink it up to become who they really are. The easy way. I think there's a hard way to do it, and that's to actually be who you are, confident in yourself. I think a lot of self-reflection. Who am I? What do I believe? What do I not believe? And I'm going to be that person no matter what. And I don't need alcohol. I don't need to smoke a joint or something for that to happen. So that was one thing that I kind of ended up thinking about, because I also had friends in high school, and every weekend they would drink or smoke it up. And was it tempting sometimes? Because I actually liked some of those people. I really did. And I remember there was like a couple girls in a group in my Spanish class and another dude. I almost said one of their names. I shouldn't do that.
Dogs.
I need to be careful on here. And I really liked them. I jived with them really well in Spanish class and talked with them. I remember they invited me, and the whole context was I was kind of like, yes, at first. And then they're like, well, who's bringing the weed? I'm like, you had me for a while there. And they're like, Kyle, you going to bring the 6-packs? And I'm like, in context,
Just
I'm
lift up your shirt. Yeah, I'm bringing the 6-packs.
Oh my gosh. I'd have to be in Oxford to do something like that. I'd have to be a frat boy first to do that probably. But yeah, it just made me think though, because I was so down with hanging out with them. And then I'll admit there was still a temptation to be like, oh, I could still go and not do that stuff or something like that. I won't smoke or I won't drink, or maybe I should or something like that, just this one time or something. And I was just like, but that's not who you are. Just like, I was like, it's kind of a bummer because I really liked them.
Yeah.
And there was serious pressure because like I sat with those people every day at Spanish class. So there wasn't like getting away from them. It's not like I was in a job somewhere. It's like, just don't be around them or something. You know what I mean? Or quit your job and leave if you really have to. It was like I had to like sit with them. I just remember how that, because they kept asking. Like, it's not like they just asked one time. They kept asking, and then they told another group in one of my other classes in science class, and as soon as I walked in that class, they're like, Kyle, we're going to party up this weekend, right? They're like, you're going to bring the beer. I'm like, I wasn't sure what to say. Like, I was in the middle of the whole classroom. Like, when you first walk in the classroom, everyone's sat down, they're waiting for the teacher. It's like packed in there. They sat in front of everyone. I was like, what am I supposed to do? It's like you're giving a speech, and like they threw that at you, and now you're like on the spot with an answer.
I don't even know how you could be cool in that situation. Like, say something.
I don't think I was. I think here's a little confession. I think I said something like, yeah, man,
Heck
whatever
yeah,
you
man,
say.
yeah,
I was
bro.
like, but I wish I had
Get out
said
of that
whatever.
situation. Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I just like sat down in my seat.
I just make up an excuse on where I have to be that weekend. Oh no, man, I gotta Got to go to my grandma's funeral.
Oh my god! And then your grandma comes up to the front door. Is like,
Hey, I'm here to pick you up, honey.
Here's your lunch. Shoot. Dang. Yeah. I didn't like my response because it wasn't accurate. I was like, yeah, man, I'll pick it up or something. And I remember I walked away from it, and that's another thing. I was just like, I didn't say what I really needed to say. I really needed to say, nah, man, that's just not me. I'm not gonna do that. That's probably what I really needed to say. And I still remember that to this day. I mean, it's been some years. I was like, I just wish I would have said the right thing. Because I kept asking, you know what I mean? And like I invited that too, for them to keep asking, to keep prodding about it. Because the dude with the dip, he only tried it once. I'm amazed the dude with the strip club asked twice. But after that, he was done though. Especially when Sharonda got in there, like she was about to like kick his butt. I'm glad too. I guess I would have gotten fired if I had. So I guess it probably wouldn't have went too well.
I don't think Sharonda would have minded.
No, I don't think she would. She was an assistant manager. Probably take him out back. She'd be like, "I'm the manager, so I can do whatever I want." So, but yeah, I still remember that. I'm amazed actually how peer pressure seems to be really attached to this.
That's the first thing
topic. I just kind of thought I was thinking about this a little bit before we sat down, and how I'm even noticing it more how much it's really attached to it, because there's the social factor and then there's you.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you can't take away one from the other, almost in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, we can end up talking about peer pressure in another one, of course, but it just seems like that's kind of like the mode of the tension that's kind of going on.
I feel like people want to belong somewhere, so they just recycle others' opinions and just use it as their own.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, say, like far right or far left, it just seems like they all like think the same, or they all like, if you're far right, you just repeat Ben Shapiro, or if you're far left, who's you know what I'm saying? Like they all say the same things. It's like a belonging thing.
Yeah.
I think that you don't realize it, but once you kind of get out of that mindset, you didn't realize that that's where like you were going for your self-worth. That's where you were going for your like to feel valid and to feel accepted and stuff, is when you're walking those halls with everybody in school and college, you're going to work every day, like you don't realize that you can't just say, oh, like I'll go to that party but I won't do it, or oh, I can come up with an excuse. Like, you have to be firm, like you said, and say, no, like, that's not who I am. I'm not going to do that. And if I don't want to, you have to stand firm in that. But it's just not that easy, as even if you sit here and talk about it and you think it is, it's not.
Yeah, because somebody could feel like they belong with their friends when they're wasted on the weekend. Like, they could feel that kind of warmth, I guess, in a group setting.
Yeah.
And I get that. That's hard to shake, because it's a nice feeling if you're like all alone and just the only friends you have like go out and party. Like, why would you want to not do that? Like, you wouldn't be able to be with the group.
Right.
Get that kind of like belonging feeling. I feel like, especially for a guy, if you don't want to be like the dude that doesn't drink or doesn't party. You don't want to be like left alone, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the truth is, if you stand up for yourself, and you will eventually be that guy.
Yeah, you'll have to be a loner for a little bit, at least until you find your right friend group. So that's what's hard.
I think that's a good segue to something I thought about when what you were just talking about, Kinley, is that connection with people. And I thought about something, what also was a difference for me, because I was not a Christian for half of high school in context, and then I was for 11th and 12th grade going forward. So it was kind of like split for a while with a different mindset. And I'm just glad somehow God saved me in 9th and 10th grade from just like drugs and alcohol and all that stuff, and just there wasn't any sexual just all over the place. I don't know how, but I thank the Lord. But one thing I remember, though, is once I became a Christian, and for me, it was a stark difference because I wasn't really going to church for a long time. So, like, you know how you have good things in your life, and sometimes it can be easy to kind of like overlook them at times. I think that happens to everyone to every certain extent. But I remember there was like a stark difference when I became a Christian, because I immediately went back to church, and it's like I hadn't had that for years, like involved in my life. And it was like a stark difference where I was like, oh, wow, there's like a connection with people that are interested in me, want the best for me, and they're not like really trying to tempt me to do bad things. And I think even now, I've been in my walk years now, and it could be easy for me to overlook that and just become accustomed to it and just not be thankful for it anymore and just like, oh, that's just the standard default. But I still remember that stark difference where I was like, having that group, cohesive people, that wanted the best, and I didn't have that before. And I was like, oh,
Y'all all had the same interests and goals in mind too. So.
yeah, there was something there where it was just like, I don't have to be like tempted to do. I don't have to smoke pot. I don't have to drink a bunch of alcohol or anything like that. It's like I'm accepted right now into this community of people, this group, this clique. I mean, if I can call it that, just a giant clique, Christian clique. That it's like I feel like I belong. Whereas before I was like fighting for that belonging with everyone else. And I think another tension people have, it's just a side note where it's like, you don't want all your friends to just be Christian, and that's another issue, probably for another topic for another day. But
Yeah,
I
'cause
I became strong in my identity with this group of people, the Christian group, and I still am. And that helped me to then be who I am. And then if I have friends who are non-Christian, like I have a friend who was a Hindu in high school and he's an atheist now, but he doesn't have to be a Christian to be my friend. And I think the reason is I'm strong in who I am and my identity, and he doesn't have to change. We have those discussions about Christianity at times when he's up for it, but I don't force it upon him or anything. But it's like, if I need to say I'm not into something, then he's cool with it. So there's a respect factor. That's also why we can have friends. But it's like it helped me even more on my journey. And I think that's one thing that's cool. If anyone else is listening here as a Christian, it's maybe rely more on that group of people. It's not like don't have friends who are non-Christians. It's not like we're saying that necessarily. And you should have friends that are non-Christian. I think there would probably be a problem there because we still have to, shine a light into the world. Yeah. And so we still have to do that. But I think that's one thing that's also important, I think, in this topic is, especially if you're a Christian or you want to be, there's a movement right now of people of, well, I could just sit at home. And I've been told this multiple times by people. I could just sit at home and watch a televangelist on Sunday, and I'm good to go. Well, I would tell you, you're not getting the good peer pressure that you need when it comes to encouraging you, building you up, giving you what you need in the week. So then when you go to your job and stuff like that, even Scripture says that we come together as one of the reasons to encourage each other. And so when you go back out into, what can be a wilderness and what can suck sometimes, and people who are non-Christians, you have that support base to keep you set with your identity. So that's another thing that I thought about is how important that is. And you can't go alone. You can't go Lone Ranger as a Christian. There's no Lone Rangers. It's a group. It's a group of folks. So
yeah, the Lone Ranger thing, without like going to church, you'd feel really like the odd man out like all your life if you were just going and seeing people not act the way you do, not believe the same you do, and it'd be a terrible lifestyle. Like not going to church, that would stink. Because you need to be with like a community, you need to belong somewhere, you need to get that. Like it's good for your mental health, I would think.
Belong and accept.
I feel good after I go to church, like seeing everybody like that's on the same page as you, and it just needs to be a rejuvenating experience.
Yeah, and it's kind of like you have to take your pick, sort of, with these groups, because, I mean, I like watching a lot of stuff on psychology and stuff like that, and with my school. And another thing that I saw was why people like gangs are such a, why they're so tempting to join is because of the acceptance and the belonging that's attached to it.
Yep.
Where before you weren't accepted and belonging, more than likely you're in a family where there was some serious, probably to say the least, family tension, or there wasn't even a father there, or you're being raised by your grandma, your parents aren't even there, maybe you're in a step family or a foster family, and you don't feel accepted or belong. And the gang, everyone says in gangs when they're interviewed in like prisons, because I felt accepted, I felt like I belonged somewhere. It wasn't the crime that was like, ooh, crime, oh, I'd go shoot someone. It wasn't like that. It was like I belonged and I was accepted. And it feels like you got to just take your pick with your identity, because they're in prison. Like their identity was then shaped by that group. And it's like, and that's another thing. Where do you want your identity shaped? While maybe you're confused in it, you kind of have to take your pick. of what that group looks like. But was there anything else that maybe you guys wanted to chime in? I feel like we may be getting towards the end of the podcast.
Yeah, my brain is just cloudy today. I'm having trouble thinking.
We'll have to get you a monster for next time.
Yeah, we might, or a bang.
I'll bring mine too.
Yeah,
bring the bang too. Dang.
But so about like that Lone Ranger thing, it made me think about something. I get, like I've told you guys, I go to Life Fellowship Church up in South Haven in our campus at Hernando. But our pastor, his name's John Salzman, and he's fantastic, you know. But there was something that I always remember he would reiterate in different sermons, and he would say, you know, you have to be poured into to be able to pour out. You know, and so just kind of going along with you can't be like a Lone Ranger if you're following God, because one, you're not the only one doing it. You know, there's other people, like you said, in that clique per se that you're going to have the same mindset with, and you're going to feel good about that. But at the same time, you have to have those people to pour into you so that you can shine a light into the world, so that you can have those friends that you pour into. And just to say, like, you were saying something earlier, and I'm trying to put my finger on it.
Oh, was it the gangs or
It was before that.
strip club or
No,
start
it
going?
was after that.
I just threw it off track, didn't I?
It was before the gangs. It was after that.
Let's see. What was I talking about? Maybe I need a bang.
I remember. Okay. So you were saying how, you know, it was like that shift, that stark contrast between like in the middle of high school, after your freshman and sophomore year, before, like during your junior and senior year, you know, you had that contrast where, you know, you started following God, and you found your identity a lot. Your identity was a lot clearer than it had been to you before. And you didn't get lost in, you know, those ways before you found it. But the thing is that, you know, before you found your identity in Christ, it's like we were all trying to fit into those groups, and you said they all think the same. You know, all those people that wanted to get wasted, and they wanted to party, and they just wanted to do all these things that you weren't really about. It's like everybody in school and in that workplace, in really society in general, they all tend to think the same, because that's the normal thing, right? Is that's what they go along with. They all think the same. They all have their same opinions, what they do. But when you had that stark contrast, you were still getting that, but you were getting it from a lot more, like a lot purer, a lot more like fulfilling group, rather than just those friends that you had before. You were still thinking the same like those other people, but just in a more fulfilling way that was growing you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm satisfied with leaving that at the last part of the podcast. I think that was good. So thank you again for joining in on this podcast with me, Javan, and our new co-host, Kinley, today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, had to have you. I got a lot out of this. I don't know about you guys, and so I'm assuming you guys are getting a little bit out of this as well when it comes to this discussion that we're having. Sometimes, you know, these discussions don't always happen, and I like that. So if you're getting anything similar to that, anything on these podcasts, we just ask that you subscribe, or put some comments down. What do you guys think? I mean, I'm down with reading those, because I certainly don't know everything. We all don't know everything. So we're just trying to learn a little bit, and maybe you have something to chime in for everyone else to see on there. So thank you for joining in with us. We're only here because of you guys, and we'll see you on the next one.